Hello and welcome to Kids' Stuff, a Chucky podcast, a HauntedMTL original podcast all about the Chucky franchise. I am one of your hosts, David Davis, and my life partner in crime and my co-host is Holly Han. Hello, Holly.
Hello, David.
Today we will be discussing the fourth film in the Chucky franchise overall and the first in what we would call like the Of Chucky branch of the series. We're going to be talking about Bride of Chucky. Now, before that, I do have a correction to make in the last episode we did, which was Child's Play 3. I had mentioned David Kirchner's role as a franchise producer, but I didn't mean to imply he was the sole producer of Child's Play 3. He was not the sole producer. I should have also mentioned Robert Latham Brown, who I had originally intended to mention. Still, I got sidetracked talking about Kirchner's role in the franchise, so sorry, Mr. Brown. Now, we're going to go ahead and dive into the movie here. So, first things first, Holly, what did you think? Did you enjoy the movie? I loved it. You loved it?
It was so good. Well, I mean, it's so good it's bad, but, well, no. I loved it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive into it. So, Bride of Chucky was released in 1998. That year is important because the previous film in the franchise, 1991's Child's Play 3, was set in 1998. So, the timeline caught up in this film. Now, I may sound like I'm splitting hairs a little bit when I mention Child's Play versus Of Chucky, but that's because of the beyond the obvious naming conventions. Part of this logic is that the companies that held the franchise changed hands a bit. So, for example, the original film was the only one of the films to be released by United Artists, which gave them the right to create a reboot in 2019 of the same name. Child's Play 2 and Part 3 are part of the larger Universal Pictures canon at this point. In many ways, with the series coming back with Bride of Chucky, I think the naming convention here was a deliberate choice by Don Mancini to differentiate this new movie in tone from the previous three films that are very much kind of an artifact of a bygone era. You know, the first three films felt very 1980s, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But this feels like a firmly rooted in the 90s Chucky. This is also where we move beyond the Andy Barclay storyline, where the franchise was inevitably moving towards being more about Chucky anyway.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he ends up becoming the focus of these things. So, Don Mancini wrote the film. He's been writing them more or less alone since Child's Play 2. Following this film, Don Mancini would also take over the director for the remaining movies. This one, however, is directed by Ronny Yu. Now, Holly, have you ever heard of Ronny Yu before?
The name sounds super familiar. Obviously I read the script you wrote, but just the name itself, it gives me flashes of seeing his name on the big screen before.
Yeah, and he definitely made his mark in the horror scene for a while, specifically with another major movie that we'll mention. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about Ronny Yu, or Ronny Yu, who was he is a Hong Kong film producer, director, and writer. So Yu was born in Hong Kong in 1950 and developed a love of storytelling early due to contracting polio at a young age.
Oh, shit.
Right. Polio still being a thing is very frightening. The long recovery meant that he had time to think about stories a lot. As he grew older, he took an interest in film and seemed to have decided he wanted to make movies early on. So yeah, spending a lot of time kind of by yourself thinking about stories, and then all of a sudden like, oh wow, movies are a great way to handle that. Now, there was some objection to this idea of being a filmmaker in his family. So when he went to college at Ohio University, he seemed to have earned his degree in business with the intent of continuing his family's business. Now, I wasn't quite sure what the family business was and when exactly he got into the U.S., like whether or not him and his family emigrated, or the other thing is he could have just been studying as a foreign student. I just could not find that information on him. So his big break came after graduating when a friend of his back in Hong Kong wrote a screenplay and asked Yu to direct the film. The film would be The Servant. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the original name in the original language.
Good, you'd butcher it.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be a way for you to learn how to direct while on the job. So the film was a Hong Kong cop film and would be a hit, taking the #1 slot in Hong Kong cinema in the summer of 1979. So Ronny Yu's been at this for a while now.
Wasn't that the same year Son of Sam was active?
That I don't know. Oh, no. Actually, I think like 1976 or 1977 was the Son of Sam's active years.
Sure.
But yeah, no, as far as this this movie, The Servant, his friend wrote a movie about a cop because his friend was a cop. And you get this Hong Kong cop film, of which there are many. Some of my favorite Hong Kong movies, some of my favorite Jackie Chan movies are the ones where he's playing a cop, So it's a thriving genre, but for it to be like the #1 movie in Hong Kong in 1979, and the fact that he learned on the job is super, super interesting. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I don't know how well I could become a filmmaker during like my first time making a movie.
Right?
So
fuck it, we'll do it live.
Right, exactly. I mean, that was the approach to that thing. So, from Ronny Yu would start directing films from about the 1980s to the 1990s in Hong Kong. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time going over this man's career because I could spend a long time on it because there's some fascinating stuff, especially because of his connections to Hong Kong cinema. You name like a Hong Kong actor, and he has a connection to him. So like Chow Yun-fat.
The 6 Degrees of Ronny Yu?
That we could literally do that. So I'm going to put a pin on this part of the discussion because I do think a Ronny Yu biography episode would be interesting.
You have to say it right. Biography.
The thing is, you don't hear a lot about Ronny Yu today. He kind of vanishes from the industry. So we're gonna talk about that. But that'll be for another time. So one of the films that he made that we need to mention, specifically because of how it connects to Bride of Chucky, is The Bride with White Hair.
Ooh.
Now, seeing that movie is what sold Kirchner and Mancini on Ronny Yu as their choice for the director. So, The Bride with White Hair was a 1993 wuxia film that Yu directed, and it starred Bridget Lin and Leslie Chung. So, Holly, what do you know about wuxia?
Nothing. I was just about to ask you what that meant.
Okay. So, for those of us not versed in Chinese and Hong Kong cinema, wuxia is a genre of martial arts hero films. I could talk about this for hours as well because, Pluto TV has that free martial arts channel and they play wuxia films all the time. Best example I can think of that you might know is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh, hell yeah.
Or Jet Li's Hero.
Yes.
So the idea is that you have a martial arts, like basically like a superhero kind of thing going on. And
nice.
I'm very much kind of doing a very simplified version of that.
Oh yeah, it's they tap into the chi and that gives them their powers.
It's a very much a national kind of thing as well.
Very cool.
So the movie itself, The Bride with White Hair, was a dark romantic fantasy adventure film loosely based on elements from a novel by Lang Husheng titled Baifa Monu Zuan. You can stream it on Amazon right now, Amazon Prime right now. So if you get a chance, watch that movie. It's very good. It's kind of like a martial arts Romeo and Juliet, but with like Chinese superpowers.
Nice.
Yeah.
So no guns.
No guns.
Sorry, Leo.
Yeah. But so again, Kirchner and Mancini were impressed by this movie and offered Ronny Yu the director's chair, which when you think about it is a pretty gutsy move.
I think this Yu kid's got gusto, Mancini.
Well, and it's interesting because, again, like we've talked about throughout the podcasts, that like Mancini is very much like a film guy. Like that he's watching film from all over the place. Kirchner seems to be the same way. But the amount of freedom that Ronny Yu has is fascinating, and especially because Yu's only movie at this time that was at least partially made for the U.S. audiences was 1997's Warriors of Virtue at this point. Do you remember Warriors of Virtue at all?
That sounds like one of the church movies that they made us watch. No, I don't.
Okay. So Warriors of Virtue is weird. It's fun. Now, you know me, I'm a fan of the 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films.
Jesus Christ,
especially that first one, Jim Henson Studios, full suits and everything like that. That led to a whole bunch of other people trying to do that same thing. Warriors of Virtue is that exact same kind of movie. combining like costumed animatronic martial arts with mysticism and everything like that. It's not a great movie, but it's absolutely fascinating for a 1990s like martial arts puppet movie.
Probably ate that shit up.
It's fun. You know, I'm going to see if I can find and watch that again. But that, at this point, that is literally Ronny Yu's only movie that has been like American.
Okay.
All right. Because it was an American-Hong Kong co-production.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. Yu was given near complete creative freedom and hired a bunch of his associates from Hong Kong to the Bride of Chucky production.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Again, this is like unprecedented in a lot of ways. So on this, Yu has said, now I'm quoting a lot this episode from the online website for Bride of Chucky because this movie was made in 1998. The internet was a thing at this point. So the website has a lot of really good information. So I'm going to be quoting that a lot in this episode. So on this, Yu has said, quote, "The producers were very upfront about the fact that they weren't interested in making a sequel, but what they were looking for was a director to help reinvent Chucky. They were willing to let me incorporate my own interpretation of the script in the film, to let me tell the story with color and movement, and that was very interesting to me."
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that definitely comes across in the movie, just thinking about it. Yeah. Like,
mm-hmm.
That's rad.
Yeah, and you know, they've done 3 slasher-style 1980s Chucky films to diminishing returns. So obviously they love the character, Kirshner Mancini, and they want to do something with it. And part of the reason they decided to go in this direction was something that was going on in the mid-1990s that I know you have an appreciation for. So part of the reasoning for this bold move was that Kirshner and Mancini were reinvigorated by one of the most influential horror films of the 1990s, which was Wes Craven's Scream.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah, Scream was a game changer, because even up through the early 90s, a lot of like the slasher genre at the time, and a lot of horror, still carried kind of those 80s hallmarks. But Scream changed that.
Yeah, it became very self-aware and meta, and just, so good.
Yeah, if we're thinking about it in like literary terms, this is like the postmodern period of horror when you start with Scream here. So Don Mancini had a lot to say about Scream. I'm going to quote him here. Quote, "Like most genres, the horror genre goes in cycles, and I think we can thank Kevin Williamson and Scream for reinvigorating the market. Over the years, I had been imagining new scenarios for this series referring to Chucky. With his previous successes, we knew it was just a matter of time before we'd be bringing Chucky back, and David Kirshner and I both felt that it was important to bring him back in a new way. We wanted to elevate the series and reinvent it, go beyond what we'd done before, and what we've ended up with is, incredibly, part horror, part comedy, part romance, and part road movie. It's a really cool blend of the genuinely creepy and the really funny." And yeah, I mean, this is exactly what Bride of Chucky is.
Yeah, it's great. It re-injects fun into the franchise.
You know,
put the fun back in Funeral.
There you go. Well, you know, and that's the thing, like Chucky is always the most fun part. So even in Child's Play, even though again you have diminishing returns, there's something about, you know, Chucky that's still really, really funny.
Yeah.
So part of the reason for this reinvigoration of the Chucky franchise at this point is Tiffany, which Tiffany, always beloved, always a fan favorite. So as for Tiffany, who would be introduced in this movie, the idea for her character is pulled from 1935's Bride of Frankenstein, which I know is your favorite horror movie, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you absolutely love The Bride of Frankenstein.
Anytime I get to dress up as the bride, I do my real hair with the waves and the pompadour, and I love it. We Belong Dead. It's just and so good. You
know, the aesthetic of the movie is beautiful. Like it's a very sad but haunting and beautiful movie and everything like that.
I love the story of the author, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, her mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, who was amazing in her own right. Oh God, I could go on.
Yeah, so as far as like the pedigree of like what's inspiring this creation of the character Tiffany, you can't do much better than Bride of Frankenstein. So reportedly, Kirshner had sparked on the idea of Tiffany when he saw a cassette box for the classic film in a video store, and pitched it to Mancini, who loved it. Now, do you remember going to the video store?
Yeah.
That was, I think, I miss that. You know, it's not quite the same thing going through Netflix or Hulu and looking at the little cards for whatever movies they have.
Yeah.
There's something very fun about going into a video store, going through the aisles, and seeing these boxes.
Right.
And you're like, what is in this box of mystery? That's how that, you know, so you know me and my love of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yes.
My first exposure to Mystery Science Theater 3000 was through video cassettes.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. We would go into Blockbuster, because we had a Blockbuster around the corner. I would go there and I would see these cases with these 1950s sci-fi films on them.
Yeah.
And then in the bottom corner, it was, you know, Joel or Mike in the bots pointing at the screen with little funny quips over that. I'm like, huh. So again, it's like that discovery, but you get that. If they were to do a biopic about the creation of the Chucky franchise throughout the decades, you could see that as being an important scene in the movie as David Kirshner in the video store, like, oh, what are we going to do to reinvigorate this? And then he sees the box.
Yeah.
And you hear a lightning strike.
It's beautiful because it's this organic moment of discovery, of like there's the whole tactleness to it, being able to hold these things. Being in the store at the right time when they had the box there and they had it available. That was great. I was my dad's little buddy when we went to Blockbuster around the corner because it was so close. We would just walk there, and I'd go up and down the aisles, and I was always stuck in the horror section, and I think that freaked my parents out a little bit.
Yeah, it's the same vibe with old school video stores, like not even rental places, but like stores where you could buy movies. Because I remember when I was a kid, one of the malls had a Suncoast Video, which was the most amazing thing. You have like FYE now, but it's not the same because they're DVDs, and it's more like, it doesn't feel as sketchy as like an old school video store.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and also these things, like the videos themselves are like $50 a pop, which was the crazy part.
Well, that and the overall aesthetic of a video store, you know, there's Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, but in our town, we actually have an independent video store. It's no longer in business, but it has this really amazing mural on the outside. And we're in a town where you don't see a lot of like murals or art or any like graffiti or anything like that. So it's got Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, there's Elvis on there.
Rocky Balboa has Marv from Sin City.
John Wayne and Clint Eastwood.
Jack Sparrow.
Yeah. And it's just, it's closed down, and it's like, man, you wish you could go back and see what it was like in the glory days. But then again, you were here back when it was open. I used
to rent a lot of stuff from that place. I have very fond memories. And it literally, the video store itself used to be a bank.
Okay.
Or no, actually, I'm thinking of another video store in town. Again, this town had a number of video stores, but one of them was actually a bank. And they used the bank vault for the adult section.
That's amazing.
And as a preteen, I would sneak in there and get in trouble.
I wish my Blockbuster had an adult section, although that sounds super sketch. But like, I never got to experience like going into the restricted section until like I was old enough to go to an adult toy store and go behind the beaded curtain.
Oh man, I miss the old school VHS cassette days. If you're interested in this sort of thing, there is a documentary on Shudder about just that sort of thing. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's definitely worth watching because they talk about that whole videotape aesthetic.
Is it our age group that we're seeing a resurgence of VHS collections and just for the nostalgia, but is it because our age group that was, you know, something we look back fondly on?
Our age group was the last age group that really saw this sort of thing be a thing, because after, you know, by the time I was in high school, the video stores started shutting down.
Yeah.
And, you know, you get things like Redbox, early Netflix with mailing and DVDs. Like, I remember getting my first DVD when I was in middle school.
I think the first DVD we got our first DVD player, and we got Finding Nemo, and we got Lord of the Rings.
See, for me, it was earlier because I got, I was very fortunate because, like, I love dinosaurs. So my mom bought me the complete collection of Walking with Dinosaurs, which was like a 4-disc thing.
So that's where that obsession started.
It was it was very expensive at the time as well, because this is when DVDs were just coming out. So, yeah, but, you know, I think the first horror movie that I had on DVD was The Haunting with Lily Taylor, Owen Wilson, Mr. Taken guy.
I think mine was probably House on Haunted Hill, or I think it was even Daughter of Frankenstein.
Well, it's funny because The Haunting is literally like the House on Haunted Hill in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, enough about VHS tapes. I'm gonna go ahead and quote Mancini here regarding the idea of Bride of Frankenstein. So in Mancini's words, quote, "After all, two dolls running around the country together and killing people a la Natural Born Killer Dolls or Barbie and Clyde is really pretty funny."
It is.
So I like his play on words here. So, we spent a lot of time on some of the lead-ups to this film, but I think we should start talking about the other folks attached to it, starting with the cast.
Oh, real quick. Can we talk about Hocus Pocus?
We can always talk about Hocus Pocus in this apartment.
Okay. So the day that we recorded the last episode, we watched Hocus Pocus that night, just, in preparation for Hocus Pocus 2 coming out. Heck yeah. And the opening credits, it's like David Kirshner's name pops up on the producer. It's like, oh, well, shit, we were just talking about him. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't realize like how ingrained he is in a lot of things that
into your childhood.
Yeah. Like we really loved growing up. So I don't know. It was kind of a funny moment.
Well, and we're going to talk about the connection between Hocus Pocus and Bride of Chucky as well. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, there was so much I was talking about regarding him, and like how fucking Hocus Pocus slipped my mind.
Right.
Is beyond me, because like you and I both love that movie. We're both obsessed with it. So, we'll talk about a certain Hocus Pocus alumni who shows up in Bride of Chucky. So, as regarding the cast, as expected, Brad Dourif returns to voice Chucky, but the film also further opens an opportunity for his comedic delivery.
Thank God.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he's always been funny. Like that little improv, like one of my all-time favorite Chucky moments, just of like him being a dick, is in Child's Play, the first film, when he's in the elevator, the old lady says, "Ugly doll." And as the elevator's moving up, you just hear Brad Dourif go, "Fuck you."
So good.
Mm-hmm. So Brad Dourif has always had some excellent comedic chops, but he also plays creepy incredibly well. He's like the best part of Exorcist 3, for example. So with this new direction for the series, it's obviously a little goofier. He plays Chucky as a much jokier character, and I think it works really well.
It does, but also it's like, if you were stuck in a doll, you'd probably go a little crazy too. And, if anyone here has gone crazy, your sense of humor gets a little twisted.
Mm-hmm. And on that, like Dourif has said that Chucky has always been a little camp, and he's right. Chucky ends up so funny when Dourif plays him because he plays Chucky seriously, but the whole concept and the scenarios are campy. And then, of course, if we're talking about camp, we're going to talk about like the gay angle to this film as well. But let's get to the real topic of this episode, which is Jennifer Tilly.
Oh my God.
All right.
She is a beloved figure in this household.
Mm-hmm. So, Jennifer Tilly, born Jennifer Ellen Chan, was born in Los Angeles in September of 1958. Later, she would move to Canada and be raised there through high school, and by 1983, she would be working regularly as an actress. Now, by the time Jennifer Tilly joins the cast of Bride of Chucky, she was already an Oscar nominee for 1994's Bullets Over Broadway. Have you ever seen Bullets Over Broadway?
No.
Okay, it's fine. Can you name the last 10 Oscar-winning Best Picture movies?
No, I don't pay attention to the Oscars that much.
Even me, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch for the fashion and the drama, but ask me a week later, I have no fucking idea. Yeah,
for me, it's the technical Oscars, the writing Oscar, and then if I got a pet favorite film that year.
Yeah.
But I don't really pay attention to the Oscars that much. But it's one of those things. It's obviously there's some prestige to the Oscars, but sometimes a movie wins an Oscar and nobody saw it.
Yeah. The also it's the Academy seems like a bunch of
old white people.
Yeah. I think of them like an elderly Freemason council,
bestowing gifts upon the token films,
like the Stonecutters Simpsons episode. I think of them like that.
I think there's a line too about the Oscars. Yeah, who rigs every Oscar night? We do. We do. Okay. So Bullets Over Broadway. It's a fun movie. But 2 years later, she would star in Bound by the Wachowskis. Now, have you seen Bound?
I have not.
You are going to love that movie.
I love the Wachowskis. They're weird, but they're great. And the movies they make are weird, and I love it. Like Jupiter Ascending. Like, what the fuck was that? But is there a BDSM aspect to Bound?
Yes.
Ooh.
So even though she was nominated for an Oscar in a Woody Allen film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's part of
Woody Allen.
And that's the thing. I dislike Woody Allen as a person. He has made good movies. It's tough to think about, and you can't separate the art from the artist too much. But again, it's a good movie. But she's excellent in it. But he's also a racist piece of shit, or not racist, rapist.
Yeah. No, he's an absolute piece of shit. We do not stand Woody Allen.
Right. So she would get this Oscar nomination for this Woody Allen movie, but I'd argue that she becomes a cultural influential figure with Bound. And I think Bound is the more substantial of the two films because of how much it changes things. So Bound is a great movie about lesbians stealing mafia money.
What?
It is so good. Jennifer Tilly, Gina Gershon, Joe Pantoliano, Law and Order daddy Christopher Maloney.
Oh my God, I love Christopher Maloney.
Yes, Law and Order daddy Christopher Maloney. So that's a hell of an assemblage of people there.
And Gina Gershon, she's so tall. Mm-hmm. She's so tall.
And I know, I think that Gina Gershon and Joe Pantoliano are going to be in the season of Chucky. I think they were able to negotiate that. But Joe Pantoliano, you might recognize him as Cypher in The Matrix.
Oh, okay.
How do I know that I'm eating this steak? Ignorance is bliss. Amazing actor. Gina Gershon, amazing actress. Jennifer Tilly, amazing. Christopher Maloney, smoking hot, amazing. Right. So again, this movie was a sexual awakening for a lot of people our age.
That's amazing. Oh, yeah. So how What the Mummy did to me, this did to a lot of people. Yeah. It's just a bicon. Mm-hmm.
And that's why that Jennifer Tilly joke, you seem a little young to be a fan of Bound in season 1 of Chucky is absolutely hilarious to me. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
So I kind of understood the reference, but not really,
Yeah, so Bound is one of those that you're going to watch, but you're going to want to watch it late at night in a dark room. Make sure no one's in the room with you.
Oh, okay. Oh, one of the. Oh, it's a hotel documentary.
Not quite that vivid, but still, just very much kind of like. I would say it's as far as sexual awakening movies. I think it's pretty high up there, along with
Labyrinth.
I guess Labyrinth to an extent, but I'm thinking of something more contemporary. I'm thinking of maybe not Dancing at the Blue Iguana, but yeah, I'll have to remember that. I'll just start. I'll blurt it out in the middle of another bit. Man, it's on the tip of my tongue. Showgirls was another one where it was I
wasn't allowed to watch that one either.
It's a terrible movie.
Oh, okay.
It's fantastic.
Okay.
But terrible. But yeah, it was one of those where it's once you got expanded cable with Cinemax, you start to learn which are the movies with the boobies.
Oh.
Yeah.
I do love booby movies.
Wild Things. That's the fucking movie.
Oh.
Yes,
there were probably people screaming at us at the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So if you ever want to feel like a ghost, listen to a podcast where someone's trying to remember something. But yes, Wild Things. And that one had Neve Campbell, oh God, what's her name?
Denise Richards.
I
remember the pool scene.
Yeah. And that was a thing. I remember in the mid 90s, I get to watch this? Right? So again, it's one of those sexual awakening movies for a lot of people. So all the Bound references in Chucky have been fantastic so far. Anyway, now fun fact about this, Gina Gershon was also one of the people who suggested Tilly take on the role of Tiffany in Bride of Chucky.
Oh, fuck yeah. Good for her.
So you start getting this little friend group.
Yeah. Sisters working for themselves.
Right. And because Bride of Chucky starts to go with a more queer sensibility, and Don Mancini being gay, and then Bound being kind of a queer film, but then also the trans developments of the Wachowskis later on in life. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here in the mid 1990s.
Yeah.
Now, as for why Don Mancini saw her as a perfect fit for the character of Tiffany, besides the fact the character was basically written for her specifically.
Yeah.
So, quote, From the very beginning, we'd always thought of Jennifer Tilly for Tiffany. And this is the first time in my career as a writer that the person I dreamed of for the role is the person we got. She's just so perfect for it. She's sexy, she's really funny, she's such a wonderful actress, and that voice. For what it is, after the first half hour, a largely vocal performance, you need someone with a very distinctive voice. And that's part of what I think is so important about Tiffany is, again, Brad Dourif voice acting the hell out of this doll. Mm-hmm. You need someone with a distinctive voice to go against him if you have another doll.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and I love her voice. She has an amazing voice.
So good. And I love that she was on Family Guy for so long. And
I loved her as Celia in Monsters Inc. Googly Bear.
Yes.
Yeah, I just her Googly Bear lives in my head rent free.
So when you said that she was written for the movie, but she was also like perfect for it. It kind of reminded me of the way that the creator of One Piece, he ended up with
his wife being a former Nami cosplayer.
Yes.
Yeah, talk about manifesting the reality you want. So I'm a big One Piece fan. So I remember I distinctly told you one day, because I talk about One Piece all the time. I won't shut up about it. But I told you, the creator of the manga, he married a cosplayer who cosplayed his character Nami,
which is so weird at first. And fascinating and adorable, but also holy shit, this guy.
He literally made his perfect wife.
A literal waifu?
Yeah, a literal waifu.
Oh my god.
Okay. But yeah, no, it's you manifest this energy of this character has to be Jennifer Tilly, and it works out, and it works out beautifully.
Chaos magic.
Right? Yeah, that is chaos magic. So, for Tilly, the film also offered an opportunity beyond a stock horror experience. And she was also a Hong Kong cinema fan. So, again, this is the perfect woman. She was really excited to work with Ronny Yu as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, as for her and Dourif's chemistry, they are incredibly great together.
Yeah, they are.
I have this quote from a behind-the-scenes write-up.
I'd watch that tape.
Quote, Tilly taped Tiffany's voice-over dialogue during a 3-day recording session held in tandem with Brad Dourif just prior to the start of principal photography.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So they had to have all of this stuff recorded before photography because of how the puppets work, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Quote, I was a little nervous at first. I'm not going to do her voice. I was a little nervous at first because I'd never done cartoons or voiceover work before, and it's a very specific technique, admits Tilly. But Brad, who's been in the voice of Chucky forever, was really sweet and made it very easy. After a few hours, we were joking around and ad-libbing and improvising and having a really great time. At the end of that first day, Brad turned to the producers to say, why didn't I get a girlfriend earlier?
That's amazing.
And there's also reports that by the time they finished the recording session together for the ending scene, there was actual genuine tears between them.
Aww.
So the chemistry between those two, it's great. And if you've watched the TV show, which I'm assuming if you've listened to this podcast, you've probably seen the TV show, that chemistry is carried through over the years.
It definitely is. I love that. Mm-hmm. It's so well established, and just I didn't know that though, that they got to know each other in the sound booth. That's got to be incredibly intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Now, rounding out the cast, we're going to transition from Jennifer Tilly. I know, I'm sorry. Rounding out the cast, we have Katherine Heigl and Nick Stable as Jade and Jesse, our film's protagonists. Now, I think in the last episode I said Jesse and James, because that's again, that alliteration throws me. But it's Jade and Jesse. All right. We also have their mutual friend David, played by Gordon Michael Wolvett. Now, of the three names, the one we know here is who?
Heigl.
Yep, Katherine Heigl. The biggest name here would be Katherine Heigl, and this would be about a year before her career breakthrough in the series Roswell in 1999.
But I think, okay, I could be wrong with the dates here. She was also in a Disney Channel original movie. Shout out Disney Channel original movies. where she played the popular girl, and she and her sister wished on a shooting star at the same time, and they swapped bodies for a little bit. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but
I remember that. And here's the thing. You call them Disney Channel original movies. When I was watching them, they were the Zoog movies. And I think we had this discussion last week.
What the fuck is a Zoog?
That was literally the blog. It's the right time for a Zoog movie, yeah.
That's so weird.
That was the name of the blog. Well, they have names for blogs. Like, for example, Disney. Do you remember Jetix at all?
No.
That was like the boy block on Disney for a while.
Toonami.
That's exactly, yeah, what the fuck's a Toonami? Yeah, how does it feel, motherfucker? So
you can go put a Toonami up your ass.
There we go. So, so for me it was Zoog movies, but okay, again, I'm pointing out like when she really gets famous.
No, totally.
Right. So Roswell, of course.
Yes, my parents were obsessed with Roswell. Oh my God.
Sexy teens doing alien things.
Right? Well, right? I mean, we watched Riverdale.
Yeah, well, we did.
We did watch Riverdale before it got really weird.
Mm-hmm. For the most audiences, she's probably best known for her role in Grey's Anatomy.
Fucking Izzy. Oh, my God.
Which I know very little about.
Oh, dude. I've wanted to introduce him to Grey's Anatomy just because of, like, the ridiculousness of it. But I had to stop after season 7 after those two characters got into that one situation that led to traumatic events. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but it was like, there's even more seasons now, and I just fucking can't. And her and Denny, I fucking can't.
I'm just thinking of a podcast where it's a couple gay people talking about Greys, and it could be like Gays on Greys.
Grey's Anatomy.
Gays Anatomy. Oh, there you go. That's probably a real podcast. We're gonna have to Google.
Probably.
Well, I don't know if I should Google Gays Anatomy on my computer.
I mean, I will.
So, all right. Now, regarding Katherine Heigl, what do you know about her?
She's stacked.
Okay. That wasn't where I was going with this.
I'm sorry.
That's a very good point. Yeah. And she's wearing one of those 90s tops where you can see the nipple through like the woven fabric.
That was the way to get around it. Yes.
Yes, that, very famous in Friends.
Mm-hmm. I know.
You saw everybody's nipples in Friends.
From what I understand, she is somewhat resentful of the way that she was like over-sexualized as a young actress.
And of course, there's also claims that she is hard to work with.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be dipping into those claims too much here, this is all based on her comments about the movie Knocked Up.
And we don't want to get sued.
Right. And, comments about the movie Knocked Up, comments about the movie or the show Grey's Anatomy. I think a lot of this is overblown. Like, I'm just going to say, I'm probably on Katherine Heigl's side in all this. Now, another fun fact, it almost wasn't Katherine Heigl as Jessie.
Who was it?
Julia Stiles was cast as Jade at one point.
Oh my God.
But she dropped out for 10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Now,
okay.
I've seen it mentioned on a bunch of different things as I'm going through my sources, but I couldn't find like a root source for that. But I feel like, Julia Stiles at the time makes perfect sense.
God, yeah. No,
and then, of course, 10 Things I Hate About You is fantastic.
It is. No, that was probably a good decision on her part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Wolvette, who plays David, the gay friend, he is probably best remembered for his role as Seamus Harper on Andromeda.
Which I love. Oh my God.
Which, funnily enough, would connect to the Chucky franchise through Lexa Doig in the Chucky TV show.
Right? As soon as the mom came on screen, I'm like, is that?
It's Andromeda.
It's Andromeda.
So, now... The third person here, Nick Stabile, or Stabile. Stabile? Nah, that sounds... Stabile. Stay. No. So Nick Stabile would make Bride of Chucky while shooting a show called Sunset Beach.
That sounds like one of those soap operas that come on at 4 p.m.
Well, and it's funny you should mention that because most of his career after seems to have been doing daytime soaps. The last thing I have for him was a string of General Hospital appearances in 2016. His career just kind of stops there, from what I've seen.
And I know General Hospital because of, was it Sonny? Is the main gangster? Sonny and Laura? No, wait. I'm thinking Luke and Laura. I'm sorry. I'm getting my soaps crossed. I'm sorry.
I recall seeing soaps, but never really absorbing them. The only soap opera like a classic soap opera that I know and love is Dark Shadows.
Oh yeah.
But you throw a vampire into it, I'm sold.
Right.
So anyway, Kathy Najimy has a cameo as a hotel maid.
Well, shit.
That's fun.
Bringing it back to Hocus Pocus.
Right? So Nanjimi probably would have made the cameo here thanks to David Kirchner because he produced a little movie you and I both love, where Kathy Najimy featured prominently, 1992's Hocus Pocus.
You know who she also is, though? My beloved Peggy Hill.
Peggy Hill, yep. She'll always be a legend to me for that. So, yeah, let me put this into perspective for us. 1992 was 20 years ago.
Ew.
Yes. A person could have been born the year.
1992 was 30 years ago.
Wow, I don't know math. Jesus Christ. So, yeah, now...
I was like, wait a second.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Because our age group, we kind of base things off of the millennium. Like, that's like BC, AD.
Yeah, so 30 years ago.
Jesus Christ.
Right. A person could have been born the day the movie was released.
Ew.
And, like, enter adulthood.
Ew.
That's crazy. Okay, but also we get John Ritter finally.
I love John Ritter.
I love John Ritter, yeah. So Ritter plays Chief Warren Kincaid, who happens to be Jade's guardian / uncle. Now, John Ritter was an actor Dawn had wanted in the franchise since Child's Play 3. In one draft of the Child's Play 3 script, the idea was to open with this the scene of kids trespassing into the good guy's factory, where John Ritter would play the security guard who scares them off.
Oh, okay.
You know, a little simple thing. Now, based on some tweets from Mancini's Twitter account, Ritter loved playing the asshole dad in this film. He's so good at this, and I miss John Ritter so much.
Right.
Like, for me, he's always going to be JD's dad on Scrubs.
Fuck, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, see, I watched reruns, or, well, you know, when you didn't have premium cable, it was Three's Company.
We all watched reruns of Three's Company.
We all did, especially when you stayed home sick from school and with Wheel of Fortune and
Come and knock on our door.
And Price is Right. Oh my God.
Yeah. So very much like growing up, a lot of us knew John Ritter from the reruns of Three's Company, which is a great sitcom. I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so John Ritter gets to play an asshole here. He is so good at it.
He really is.
He has a wonderful death, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, apparently he really appreciated the opportunity to kind of break a character here.
Yeah.
So one more mention before we move on is the role of Damien Baylock, who is Tiffany's admirer, played by Alexis Arquette. So as far as I can tell, looking at the history of the franchise here, Alexis is the first transgender actress in the franchise at this point.
That's awesome.
Now, unfortunately, Alexis is no longer with us. She passed away in September of 2016 at the age of 47 due to complications of HIV, which she had contracted in 1987.
Oh my gosh. And that's, you know, we had so much scare with the AIDS crisis, like to get HIV in 1987 and just live through all of that and through her transition, and oh my gosh.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, like in the early 90s, there were still a lot of like people saying really fucked up things about HIV and everything like that. So like I recall like this thing being kind of mysterious. Since then, obviously, I've learned a whole lot more, and I understand like how badly the not just the gay community, but like a large community of people were affected by this. You know, when in the class that I teach, we're going to watch Paris is Burning. And that is set during the AIDS crisis in New York. And it's startling to like look at the performers of the different houses and seeing died in 2009, died in 1989, died in 1996. Like half the people in that movie are dead. And it's sad. But, speaking of drag and everything like that, though, Alexis worked as a female impersonator, Eva Destruction.
Fuck yes.
Yes. And for much of her career, and would eventually reveal her transition was completed in 2006.
Good for her.
Which I'm glad that she was able to kind of like...
she got to live 10 years as herself.
Yeah. So all told, she is in a lot of awesome movies. Look her up. I wasn't even aware that she was in Pulp Fiction.
Right.
Like, that caught me off guard. And then also we need to mention that she is one of the famous Hollywood Arquettes. Patricia, Rosanna, and David are her siblings.
Yep.
So she is one of the Arquettes. Fantastic. She's so good as Damien. Mm-hmm. Damien's a great character, by the way. Very funny shit.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about one of my favorite things about these movies is like the technology, the puppetry, everything like that. Because
fucking nerd.
It's amazing stuff. I'm sorry. It is so good. So as far as technical achievements will go in this film, this would be the last Chucky movie that Brock Winkless would work on. Now, we talked about Winkless last time in Child's Play 3.
Yes.
He was present for the franchise's first 4 movies and worked with the Crypt Keeper on Tales from the Crypt.
That's so fucking cool.
Yeah, and that's one of those that I wish was streaming. I love Tales from the Crypt. So, as the 90s drew to a close, his career would wind down as he dealt with a loss of muscle control from multiple sclerosis.
Fuck.
And he passed away at the age of 55 in July 2015. And, multiple sclerosis would be devastating for a puppeteer.
Oh, yeah. No, even if he just had, arthritis, that would have, but, no, you don't get to be in control of your body anymore.
Yeah. Now, on that note, if we're talking about the Crypt Keeper, I should mention that the puppet Crypt Keeper has Chucky's eyes from Child's Play 2.
What?
Thanks to technician and puppet designer Kevin Yeager.
That's amazing.
Who we've mentioned a few times on this show. So, at this point in the franchise, Yeager seemed to have his production team on point. He's still credited as the designer and coordinator for all the puppet effects, but he also has a substantial team working for him here.
Yeah. Wait, we should take a shot of Yeager every time we say his name.
There you go. Now, this is how insane the workload is for the puppeteers in this film. Chucky and Tiffany each had 9 puppets.
Jeez,
9 different puppets.
Oh my god. Well, makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, because each puppet has to do a specialized thing. You can't have one puppet doing all.
Yeah.
So each puppet also required about 7 operators.
Wait, are you saying the puppets were unitaskers? You hate unitaskers.
Yeah, some of the puppets were indeed unitaskers. For example, the floppy puppets, because your whole idea is you chuck them and watch them flail, right? So each puppet, when I say each puppet, I mean the complicated mechanism puppets.
Yes, yeah.
Not the rod puppets. But each complicated puppet had required about 7 operators.
Oh my god.
So, for example, looking at Chucky, Tiffany had the same thing, but looking at Chucky would have a hero cable puppet. Now, when I say hero cable puppet, what do you think I'm talking about here?
I just see visions of him on a back cable just flying across a canyon. Just
So it is not that. When you talk about hero things in design, it's usually your main presenting one that you use. For example, when you're
pretty one.
Yeah, so when you're designing a website, you have your hero image. That is the main image. A cable puppet, a lot of these puppets are not operated by people with strings. They're operated by electronic cables going into the components and the servos and everything like that.
Yeah.
So you have this puppet who is the best puppet they have, with cables pouring out of his back. And those cables go to the people who control the puppet, and that's what causes the movements.
Chucky was a Borg.
Mm-hmm. So Chucky would have a hero cable puppet, 2 rod puppets, and 6 stunt puppets.
Nice.
So we know what rod puppets are, right?
Yes.
You've heard me talk about puppets all the time because I am obsessed with them. That is another one of my weird things. I love puppets. So now Tiffany presented a bit of a problem because she's a diva.
Because she's a woman? No.
Unfortunately, yes, because she's a woman. Tiffany required a little more work because her shapely body gave the effects team less space to include her mechanics.
But she had the jacket.
Right, but again, you can't have the cables poking out of the jacket.
Yeah,
and the jacket isn't always there either. Right. So Tiffany, because she has her shapely little puppet body, they had to figure out a way to get those components crammed up in her.
That's what she said?
Right. So less space to include mechanics. Now, how all of this worked, this is a puppeteering process for a complicated shot on the set. 3 puppeteers alone would handle the facial features through radio control.
Oh my god.
Right. So you would have, I'm not sure exactly how it broke down. Obviously, you'd have at least one person dedicated for running the mouth.
Yeah.
The eyes would probably be their own thing, and then things like cheek or facial muscles would be another, I would imagine.
Okay, no, that makes sense, because you can't have someone doing 2 or more of those, because that would just be too complicated.
Yeah, especially because if you look at facial anatomy, the cheeks don't control the eyes. The cheeks can affect the eyes, but the eyes are their own thing compared to the cheeks, compared to the mouth. So you have the radio control puppeteers, 3 of them working on the face for this one puppet. You also needed a computer playback operator and puppet coordinator to facilitate communication between the director and the puppeteers. So you had all this pre-recorded dialogue. You would have to have someone operate the dialogue and work with the person controlling the mouth.
That is insanely complicated.
On top of that, you had to have someone who coordinated between the puppeteers and the directors, because the puppeteers, when those puppets are on set, they have to run the show because of how complicated this is.
Well, that and the director puts them in a locked room when they're done at the night, so he doesn't want to see them.
Exactly. So the film would also update the materials that made up the doll's skin. So instead of the regular foam latex that didn't light very well in the first 3 movies, they could use much better silicone and foam latex combinations for the skin as well.
Which you could totally see, and that's kind of why it's this version of Chucky and Tiffany, it's kind of jarring because it's like, what the fuck is going on with their face? And you realize it's a material change out.
And the movie is gorgeous as well. And part of the reason it's gorgeous is because they're able to like do a lot of stuff with the lighting there.
Oh yeah.
Now, this film featured, based on my count, 17 puppeteers. There are also 2 actors playing Chucky and Tiffany.
Yes.
In costume during the graveyard scene when they're fighting with the shovels.
Yeah.
These actors were Ed Gale and Debbie Lee Carrington, respectively. All right. So that's the technical stuff regarding this film. So this is just all background. Let's talk about this movie. Let's have some fun with this. So I asked you earlier in the episode overall thoughts on the episode, overall thoughts on the movie. So you enjoy Bride of Chucky, right?
Oh yeah.
How would you rank it among the films you've seen?
It's pretty up there because it's like, not gonna lie, I forgot Seed of Chucky existed for a while. Like, I remember the movie poster. I never went to go see it. Again, I wasn't allowed to go see it. But I knew who Tiffany was because she was so iconic. And also, we had a Spencer's Gifts in our mall, and that's when they came out with the doll. And me being a straight-laced little Mormon girl sneaking around the Spencer's of the mall, I looked up at the Tiffany doll. I was like, she's so creepy and she's so pretty, and I want to be like her one day. So it's pretty up there, honestly, with the movies, just because she makes this movie. In
a lot of ways, she's the protagonist of the movie.
She is, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about it. Like, as much as it's like Chucky's movie, it's also Tiffany's movie.
Yeah.
Because she's the motivator of all this. So, so you rank it pretty high up there then.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel it compares to like the first 3 films?
It's definitely a tone shift. It feels like a fresh of breath air.
Yeah. Again, I think the first film, Child's Play, is a masterpiece in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they're products of their time.
It's gritty as shit, which you don't really get again in the series for a while. But like, again, Child's Play is like this 1980s kind of gritty.
You got a
crazy
problem with Chicago?
No, not at all. I love Chicago. That's why I like Chucky. But no, like the just something about like the way that it's all grainy, grimy, the fact that the puppet is so creepy looking compared to all the others in the future.
Right.
Because Chucky, like, even with like the staples and shit, like he kind of takes on kind of cartoonier appearance in this one.
It's like if you try to draw a Cabbage Patch doll from memory.
So yeah, like no, I get what you're going with there. But no, the idea, like, so the first film, amazing. I love the second film. Third film, I'm less enamored with. Again, I love all of them. But this one feels like a sea change, and ultimately for the better for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's a great movie. As far as how I would rank it, I'd probably put it in at number 4. If I'm thinking about it now, number 4 in the franchise for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So let's talk about our favorite deaths in the movie. Because I remember watching this with you the other night, and when a certain death scene came on, you're like, oh, this is beautiful.
Right? Yeah, I loved Tiffany's death scene. In the back of her modded out little trailer.
Can we talk about that trailer for a second? Because that, like...
Okay, so it's an Airstream, right? It looks like an Airstream. And that had to be so weird to film. Like, it just... getting the angles and whatnot. And I understand, sets are different than the physicality of an actual trailer, but she had a lot of living space in there.
It's a weirdly goth trailer.
It is.
Like, it's cool as shit, but like, yeah, specifically that a very large bathroom in that trailer.
Right? Just the whole, like, where you would put the master bed, essentially she gutted and put a 4-claw tub, a full-size fucking tub.
And I think the trailer is like a TARDIS, because like it seems bigger on the inside than it actually should be.
It does. It feels like, when they had to do scenes inside of it, it feels like maybe they made a bigger one that was wider so they could accommodate the camera operator. Mm-hmm. And then all of the fucking dolls in there is just, it's so off-putting.
Well, and all the purple and everything like that. It's like a beautiful trailer.
And the Rob Zombie of it all. Mm-hmm, oh my God. Okay. So I was exposed to Rob Zombie first with, I go over to my friend's house to play Twisted Metal. So Dragula was, I think, the first Rob Zombie song I ever heard. So just this movie opening with him, and it's sexy, it's dirty, it's scary, it's so good.
Yeah, what was the song they opened with again? It was
Living
Dead Girl. Yes, yeah. That's it. By the way, this movie has an incredible soundtrack.
It really does.
But we've gone on a tangent here, so let's talk about that Tiffany tub scene, because
yes.
okay. Oh my God, aesthetic as fuck.
Right? She's playing Bride of Frankenstein on that cute little TV.
One of those TVs that had like the VHS tape deck built into it. Like, that's like what my first TV was.
But it wasn't like the basic black. It was like one of those like...
Wasn't it like cherry red?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Back when like they made plastics like that and you're like, oh my God, it's the red version. And you would have to get it because, oh my God, it was pretty.
So yeah, like the death is very simple. It's Chucky. He pushes a TV into a tub and she's electrocuted to death.
Yeah.
But the way that it's shot, really well done. And then, because she's in a tub, you get these bubbles everywhere, like in a naturally large amount of bubbles just flying around the room. But
somebody got paid to be a bubble machine operator. Oh my God, that's the dream.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful scene. Like Jennifer Tilly does a great job with the convulsions and everything like that. You have the parallels to what's going on in the Frankenstein film that she's watching. Mm-hmm. There's one thing that I notice in a lot of Chucky films is like paying special attention to eyes.
Yeah.
And there's moments where you see her eyes during this whole thing, and there's a lot of energy going on there. And
like right before when the bride says "We belong dead," and it's just a close up of Tiffany's eyes, and she has this little tear, and it's just, oh my God, it's so good.
So regarding the tub scene, this is another one of those things that like Don Mancini had this idea for a while and just never really had the opportunity to go with it. So like there was the original death in of Andy's babysitter in Child's Play was supposed to be a tub scene. That exact sort of thing.
The original tub girl, if you will.
Oh, no. So, but yeah, that was the original intent. Then they switched over to the hammer, and of course they make a joke about the hammer in this one as well. But yeah, that scene, it's a wonderful death. Probably like probably the most iconic in the film.
Yeah.
Although as a runner-up, my pick is Cenobite John Ritter, which again, I love how convoluted Chucky's schemes get at times, and this was him like working with Tiffany on this one. So it's their little first date since they were turned in since she became a doll.
You have to make memories on your first date. Mm-hmm. You really do.
So the Cenobite Ritter, what they do is they create a little booby trap where when he opens up a thing, or not when he opens up a thing, using the airbag to the van or whatever, like a whole bunch of nails fly into his face and pierce his face. Yeah,
they're in the glove compartment area. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she rigs up a booby trap.
Right. So there's this little line from Chucky. Like there's a lot of major horror references in the film, which we'll get into later. But he talks about this idea of like, seems familiar, right? Yes. So the thing about the Cenobites, in the canon, Charles Lee Ray dies in 1980. I think it was 89. No, 88. So he died November 1998 or 1988. Hellraiser, of which the Cenobites are famous, came out in 1987. So technically, Charles Lee Ray probably saw Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Which is just cool to think about.
And then that also connects back to Child's Play 3, where we had the barber who was the father in Hellraiser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. And of course, while he's trying to figure out how he's going to kill, John Ritter's character, he goes and he picks up a hammer, and Tiffany talks about it being predictable, that of course being a reference to the death in Child's Play 1. So we should also talk about the sex scene.
Yes.
Not the best puppet sex scene ever made. That is actually in Team America World Police.
Yeah.
But the sex scene in this movie between Chucky and Tiffany, largely unscripted.
Oh no.
Right. It just seemed like it was
Did somebody just throw the dolls on top of each other and Dom was like, let's film it, boys?
I think, because they would have had to have the dialogue first.
Yeah.
Although there is some question on that, because when you have that famous line of do you have a rubber? Tiff, look at me. I'm made of rubber. They're done in shadow puppet form, right?
Yes.
So it could have been where literally they had, they had them come on, record something, because they already had this okay, well, we're going to go ahead and do the sex scene. They shot the scene with the puppets and then had them record something after the fact, because you don't have to do the puppet mouths with that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I don't quite know, but from what I read in the notes and everything like that, largely the scene was just kind of a fuck it, throw it in. But it's so good.
It is.
It's so funny.
And whoever wrote that line must be so proud of themselves. I think I've struck gold here.
Right. And just again, part of the whole camp of all of this, because on the one hand, it's incredibly silly. But on the other hand, this is the two of them kind of falling in love.
Yeah.
And even though they're incredibly toxic towards each other, you're kind of oh, that's kind of sweet.
And I mean, you learn that they had been together before.
Especially in the first season of the Chucky TV show, it fleshes out the timeline quite a bit. It
does. It gave me a good reminder of, oh, that's right. They were together before he died. Mm-hmm. So this is the audience's introduction into their love story.
Mm-hmm. Now, we talked about the sex scene. Let's talk about the queer vibes of the franchise going forward, because there are a lot.
The absolute rainbows shooting out of it.
So I'm going to quote Mancini from a BuzzFeed article. Quote, "I was sort of consciously injecting some gay identity into it, and people really embrace that. I think it's important, in addition to being fun, because you just don't see much of it in the horror genre. One of the distinguishing factors of our franchise is it has a certain gay identity."
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So among the elements to this, obviously there's the whole camp of Chucky and everything like that. Obviously Tilly being in there, Jennifer Tilly, because at this point, she's kind of a gay icon.
Yeah.
One of the more problematic elements of this being David, the gay best friend. So, of course, he's treated as a good person, right?
Yeah.
But he kind of rides that line between, a fully fleshed out character and kind of a cliche. And the other problem is that he dies.
Yeah, that sucks.
And there's that trope of bury your gays, where you're not, allowed to have a gay character, so they inevitably have to die for the audience to, Yeah. So again, and his death was just kind of weird.
It was.
It's fun. It's messy as shit. It's hilarious, but it's also
It's very irreverent.
Yeah, just, gets exploded by a truck crashing into him. So yeah, number one, it's great that you have this very openly gay character. Mm-hmm. In the script. It's not great that they have to kill him off the way they do, but also he's openly gay in the sense that he is safe.
Yeah.
You get some oblique references to his sexuality, oh, I'm not into men like that, but he's treated very safe.
Yeah, he's not a threat. Mm-hmm. To God, I hate purity culture, but here we go. He's a safe option for Jade from the point of view of her uncle. But he knows the wool is being pulled over his eyes.
Yeah, especially the scene in the beginning with the corsage, and then as the token gay, no, you put that in water with some Alka-Seltzer and it's gonna last you a week. And then like there's just like that little beat where John Ritter's kind of looking at him like,
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because a lot of parents are if my kid goes to the dance with their gay best friend, they're not gonna get pregnant. Right. Like, dude, fuck off. Like, right. Yeah, I don't know. Just it's sad that David had to fall into that, and just be kind of used as a means. You know, and
again, it's like as transgressive as this movie is in a lot of ways, this is also one of those ways in which it is not.
Well, it's weird in the age of the internet. We've seen how culture has moved forward, and like things that leave a bad taste in your mouth were like super funny in the late 90s and early 2000s, but now you're just like, holy fuck, we got away with saying that. Like that's messed up.
Like, it's amazing to think about like the character of David here, and to think about like the gayest show on television, which is American Horror Story.
Yeah,
like absolute gayest show on television, and it's just amazing to see how far we've come. But you have to have these transitional characters.
Oh, definitely.
Like David.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we're also talking about, because as the franchise goes forward, we start playing with ideas of, like, gender identity, transgender notions. So the presence of Alexis Arquette here, whose, female impersonations were, like, open knowledge in Hollywood at the time. But being cast as the goth, like, wannabe that was obsessed with Tiffany and that sort of thing. Again, there's all these little things that are going on there, which I find fascinating. Mm-hmm. So, that being said, this movie is 1990s as shit.
It really is.
Like, Rob Zombie, number one, we brought up. Like, the score to the film is incredible. Like, the soundtrack's so good.
Also, the text, or the font for the credits is similar, if not the same, as the Living Dead dolls that you would find in, like, Hot Topic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm looking at that. I'm like, every horror punk kid out there knows that font, but like, it looks like it was used for the Living Dead dolls. It looks like it was used on a Rob Zombie album. It looks like it was used in a Horror Pops album. Like,
yeah,
all them kids know.
Well, and then like, you look at the film cinematography.
Yeah.
And very 1990s here. Like, the way everything's kind of grainy, the way things are shot. Obviously, like, the fashion and the cars filter into this. But no, just like you look at a 1990s horror film and they have this look to them. So, like, you put this against, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
Or against Scream or Scream 2. And you see it, it's like, no, it has that kind of weird...
Yeah. Think of the friends in Scream by the Fountain. Think of their outfits, how bright they are, the patterns... clothing texture, it's just very quintessentially 90s.
Yeah, and just the texture of the cinema screen itself present in the movie. There's like a grain to it. The way that like shadows are shot.
Yeah.
Also like when they're shooting things on a soundstage, you can tell because it's like that 1990s horror soundstage where everything at a certain distance is jet black.
Yeah.
Any scene where you see rain and thunder coming down has that 1990s look to it.
And you can see like the cone of like where it comes down the most. It's like, oh yeah, they're using a rain machine.
Yep. So, again, this is a very 1990s film. Now, one of the things that everybody loves about this, one of the reasons Bride of Chucky is one of those like most paused horror movies is because there's a lot of references to horror franchises in it. Specifically, the evidence locker at the beginning of the film.
That was so much fun.
Now, what did you notice in it?
Well, Michael Myers' mask, Jason's hockey mask, and then the chainsaw from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And of course, you have Freddy Krueger's glove.
Yes.
Another thing, it's very hard to tell because again, the way this is shot, and I don't have like an HD copy of this scene, but it looks like some of the dolls from Puppet Master.
It does.
Are in there. And it's weird because the angle, because these cages, the way that their bars are handled, you can't get a real clear shot of it.
Yeah.
But it does look like a couple of the dolls from Puppet Master are in the evidence locker at some point. But again, it's one of those things where you have to like look and squint and you have to kind of take it on faith that, okay, yeah, that's probably a Puppet Master thing.
Yeah.
Which, Puppet Master is fantastic. I love that franchise. Now, another great horror reference, Damien's name, Damien Baylock, is a nod to The Omen. Now, have you seen The Omen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's all for you, Damien!
So, Mrs. Baylock right there, right? I love The Omen. I recall, when they did the remake of it with Liev Schreiber, coming out June 6th, 2006, I was, all about that. I was counting down the days.
Yeah. Yeah, the religious community was up in arms.
Dude, yes. I remember that. A lot of people were pissed off. How dare they do that? But for me, I'm going to go see The Omen on 6606. Too bad it wasn't great, but it is what it is. But yeah, Damien obviously being a reference to two characters in The Omen. And there's just some really fun little jokes and everything like that, especially early on in the movie. Voodoo for Dummies.
Yes, the updated version.
Absolutely hilarious.
Oh, okay. Can we talk about the Voodoo for Dummies? It's so fucked in general.
Yeah, I have complicated feelings on how voodoo is addressed.
Or voodoo, if you want to say it in the...
So yeah, I cover voodoo in my... So there's different forms of voodoo, vodun, voodoo. And even with voodoo, you have capital V voodoo, and you have lowercase v voodoo. Again, I cover this in a class. I take an entire week to cover this.
And they're all completely different from hoodoo as well. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I don't think has aged well with the franchise. I'm glad they kind of got away from it and went with a quasi voodoo thing for later on.
But it still seems like it's, ooh, this is from a far off land. And it's very white person who doesn't understand it.
In the context of the first film, the voodoo angle works for me. Because again, you have a person of color who teaches Charles how to do this thing. And again, you have the Damballa artwork. You see the idea that because Charles has that mural of himself in his place, with him doing the Damballa imagery and everything like that.
His Dorian Gray portrait.
So you get the sense that okay, here's a guy who developed this fascination with voodoo and everything like that. And then as the series goes on, it gets more ridiculous. And here we get introduced to an amulet, which, to be fair, the amulet was shown in the first film. But
I totally forgot about that, because I'm where the fuck did this come from? And
it was just, because obviously, for some religious practices, you have...
Oh, yeah, for...
ritual items.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all of a sudden now, in order to do any of this, you have to have an amulet.
Yeah.
And the rules keep changing, but I think ultimately changing for the better. This is probably the roughest period of how Chucky's powers works. But at this point, the voodoo thing is very, very kind of problematic. And it's one of those things you kind of have to take with the franchise, and you have to say, okay, obviously this is ridiculous.
It was a product of its time, in the sense of uneducated people who were looking at a form of mysticism who don't know how to be respectful of it.
And obviously I'm sure that Don Mancini did research and everything like that, but also it's I don't know if he consulted anyone who is actually of the faith.
Is someone on the payroll for voodoo consultant? Oh my god, that would have been amazing.
So again, obviously this is one of those things that you can really criticize the franchise for. I think it's perfectly fair. If you cannot handle the franchise because of these things, I get it. There's some stuff that I refuse to watch because I have a moral objection to it. But it's one of those things where I can overlook it and I can understand here's what's going on at the time. But you see them kind of try to move away from it here. Yeah. But it does give us a Voodoo for Dummies book, which is fucking hilarious on a couple of levels.
Yeah.
So it's one of those elements that's trickier to come to terms with. And I think that's... people can buy into a killer doll, no problem. But for a more modern audience, the voodoo angle is one of those things where how do you rectify that?
Yeah, because so I'm a practicing pagan, so I understand that voodoo, voodoo, hoodoo, it's sacred, and it's done within an insular community because it's you don't fuck around with that shit. Like, you know, you don't walk into a fairy ring. Like, you know, just there's some shit you don't do and you don't disrespect because you just to be appreciative of culture, but also like you don't want to piss off the wrong person.
Right. And the thing is, like, there's this misconception that voodoo is not a real religion. It is. It is absolutely a real religion. And, you know, you can get away with making fun of Catholicism with like, say, for example, Exorcist movies.
Yeah.
Because, again, you're punching up, right?
Yeah.
Like, thinking of it in terms of comedy films, I don't like humor that punches down on people. I like humor that punches up. You know, make fun of the rich, make fun of those in power. Catholicism, largely one of the most powerful religions on earth that has had other people under its thumb. Voodoo, not so much, historically. So, like, I think tackling a religion like voodoo like that is punching down, and it's not something I'm here for.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Mancini meant harm. I don't expect that.
No, it just seemed like it came from an ignorant place.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know...
In the most, like, unaware kind of sense of being ignorant.
Yeah, and then, like, I do want to cover voodoo in the franchise and as a whole as, like, a supplemental thing. Because, again, like, you know, we're not just talking about Chucky, but there's, like, a lot of cultural stuff going on with this. So I think I'm going to have to go into, like, Mancini's writings and interviews with him about voodoo and his approach to it, and then what are his thoughts, like, because even now I imagine he's probably like, you ever go back into your, like, old journals or yearbook and look at some of the cringe shit you write?
Oh yeah.
I feel like based on his career trajectory, based on, like, his writing, based on his love of film and everything like that, I think he kind of has that same vibe when he looks at some of these elements and he's like, oh man.
Yeah, I mean, we all grow throughout our career.
Yeah.
I get it.
But for better or worse, the fact that they've kept it and they haven't retconned it and they've just changed it.
Yeah.
It's to his credit. Like, you know, we're not going to get rid of the thing that's is a problem, but we're going to adjust it.
Yeah, that getting rid of something is the easiest way to do, but that's also the most confusing for the audience. And some movies just gloss right over it and don't address it. Some movies try to address why they got rid of something, but this one they've adjusted, they've course corrected as much as they could. Yeah,
and nothing gets jettisoned from the Chucky franchise, which I love. Like,
except that last scene.
Oh, yes. That was funny. So again, there's so much going on in this movie. I do have, like, one more note about something. So in the movie, when they're going over Tiffany's, like, collection of stuff about Charles and everything like that, they list Charles Lee Ray's death in the newspaper clipping as November 9th, 1988, which is the opening day of the first film's release.
What?
Yeah, so
I love that.
Yeah, again, like, there's all these clever touches where, like, the people working on this franchise fucking adore it.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a single person who has been on the franchise who has, like, come back and said, I hated doing those movies. Like, even though Katherine Heigl hasn't been in it since the first one, she married the guy who worked on the puppet in the first film. Right? So there
had to be, like... That had to be such good vibes on the set, like, at the time. Like, to be able to fall in love.
Falling in love with this little creepy doll every day on set and everything like that. But, you know, it's just one of those things where, like, if Katherine Heigl could find a way to come back, I'm sure she would do it.
I would love that.
If, oh, God, who plays Mike Norris in the first film? Prince Humperdinck, who was the actor playing?
Oh God, I don't know.
Yeah,
but Prince Humperdinck, yes.
Yeah, but, like, if you can get Prince Humperdinck back as Mike Norris, like, years later,
oh my God,
he would probably do that. It's just finding those opportunities.
That'd be amazing because he figured it out, right?
Yes,
if
yes.
Memory serves, okay, because there's a growing number of people who have figured it out.
Yeah, there's a community of Chucky survivors, and I think we're going to get a lot more signs of that in the second season of the show based on some of the stuff I've seen in the trailers. Specifically, there's a scene where all these Chucky or good guy dolls are hanging in a forest.
Oh, God.
And it reminds me of the
Walking Dead?
Well, the Japanese forest, unfortunately. The Japanese forest.
Yeah. The
like
farm forest.
Yeah, or even the doll island.
Yeah.
On that episode of Ghost Adventures.
Oh my gosh.
But
there are things in this world
that we will never truly understand. So, like, are we going to get another Chucky survivor? I bet we are. I think we're going to get that. I don't know who is it. I don't know who it's going to be. Is it going to be Jesse? Is it going to be Jade? Is it going to be Tyler from the third film? Is it going to be De Silva? Is it going to be Mike? Is Mike Norris, going to be like hunting Chucky's down too?
Which would be amazing because he was an authority figure.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was mentioned, I think, in the second movie that he was forced to retire.
Right. And then, in the post-credit scene of Cult of Chucky? Yeah, Cult of Chucky, where they reintroduce Andy to the franchise. He's on the phone with his mom, and he's like, hey, say hi to Mike. So either Mike married her, or maybe they're dating, or maybe they're still close friends, or something like that.
Or maybe he's like her caretaker.
Yeah, so, again, there's the room for these characters to show up, and I think season 2 of Chucky, especially because we have Andy and Kyle out on their mission from God, there's going to be like newspaper reports about a couple of psychos shooting people's dolls. So that's probably going to trigger somebody. And I feel like, they're keeping something secret here. I think we're going to get another survivor. And I just want to see, ultimately, what I would love to see with this franchise as a culmination is like World War Chucky, where Chucky's just able to mass produce dolls and you have all these survivors just like mowing down hundreds of them.
Right.
So I don't know, but I think, the larger community that is, involved with the making of the franchise, but within the story itself, there is a community of people dealing with this psychopathic doll. So it's fascinating.
It is.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the ending scene of this movie?
Yeah, go for it.
Jesus Christ. Okay. It looks like, a fucking chest burster comes out of Tiffany's goddamn legs. Oh my God. Okay.
That is probably the part of the film that has, aside from the voodoo, has probably aged the least well for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so obviously it's going to be a setup to see to Chucky here, but like just having the birth happen that quick is just kind of like, fuck it. I don't know if we're going to get to do another one of these movies.
Yeah. No, you have to leave it open-ended for the fans.
Yeah. But the baby itself, who will end up being, Glenn, / Glenda, like amazingly creepy.
Oh God. Yeah. For like how burned she is, you forget that they are meat on the inside. And it's just so bloody and visceral. And if anyone saw the House of the Dragon episode the other day, the sound effects, Jesus Christ.
Squelchy.
Yeah, it was squishy.
Yeah, so I think like the ending probably drags the film down a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Like the
especially how the cop just was like, you two go on now.
Right. And like no one ever fucking explains these fucking meat puppets. There are just all these puppets, all these dolls filled with meat at every crime scene. And no one really questions it. No one really no one takes it to a fucking lab and goes, well, this is Charles Lee Ray. And of course in the movie, one of the plot points is that they're going to go dig up Charles Lee Ray's body.
Because they found fingerprints.
But it's like, well, why not the fucking prime rib that was stuck at the crime scene?
Because DNA analysis was too expensive, David, and there is a backlog.
Fair enough. Okay. But now we're in fucking year of our Lord 2022. Let's see.
Where you can go get a 23andMe.
Yeah, let's take a look at the fact that there's probably going to be a truck full of meat-filled Chucky dolls burning by the side of the road. Let's look at the fact that there was a massive massacre at a movie theater where there is a Chucky doll filled with meat there too.
Right.
Like
the adults are wholly just
Just scrape up the roadkill, send it to a lab. What is going on with this part of the franchise? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills at this point. But yeah. So like, I mean, obviously the ending's very gross out and everything like that.
Yeah.
Do you think it detracts from the overall film?
No, it's kind of the cherry on top, if that makes sense. Like, not.
Blood red as a cherry.
Okay. Maybe not the cherry, but like the nuts that are sprinkled on top of the cherry, like the sprinkle of peanuts. It's this little something right at the end. It's fucking gross. It's horrifying. And like, how? Why? Well, I know how, but why?
Yeah, we saw that scene.
We did.
I made a rubber.
Right? And it just, oh my God, like they're dead. Who's going to raise the baby? Like, we're going to find out in the next movie, but like, it's just so weird. And then the cop dies, and like the guy who sent Jesse and Jade away, like the only proof of like, oh, they are innocent. So are Jesse and Jade like dealing with the legal repercussions of what the fuck happened?
Are they even still together?
Right. They're probably not together. The stresses of life have probably drifted them apart. But like, are they in prison somewhere, like facing consequences for this whole episode?
You know, and that was one of the things that threw me about the first season, because obviously like Andy is the main link between the franchise and the TV show. So when the lead kid is going through and searching for all this stuff, again, it's all Andy-centric because that is the main thing. But it's also like, there, if you go to page 2 of the search results and show me like Jesse or Jade Kincaid,
because they were, oh my God, that fucking name. They were in Hackensack. Like, you would think when the kids in the new series were trying to look up information on Charles Lee Ray, because they did like a whole in-depth research on this. They didn't pull up any articles of Jesse and Jade in Hackensack digging up Charles Lee Ray's grave. By the way, that graveyard has an amazing makeover.
Like they really took care of that graveyard in the years since Bride of Chucky.
It was like bare and desolate, and there was...
It had like a 1930s Universal horror vibe.
And you could tell it was on a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
But it has been beautifully manicured.
Yeah, they take care of their dead in Hackensack.
They water the grass now.
Mm-hmm.
He got it like a brand new headstone. I mean, you know what I mean? But like, it's... Why weren't they brought up? Because that happened in their town.
Which I feel like that's something that's going to probably happen in season 2. Okay. You know, obviously you have to get Andy, and if you get Andy, bring in Kyle, right?
Yeah.
But there's other survivors. These kids are now stuck at like a Catholic school, which is going to suck for them.
Yeah.
But like the idea of just kind of looking and understanding like what's going on with the psycho doll and everything like that, I think we're going to probably get some indications about, you know, what was the fate of Jesse and Jade? What was the fate of Tyler and De Silva? I think we're going to start getting those, because the first season of the show really did a good job of like bringing in those fan favorite questions. It just didn't do all of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I am looking forward to it. I love Bride of Chucky. It's a great movie. It's the 4th on my list, I think. Maybe fifth. I don't know. I'm gonna. My rankings always kind of update. It's definitely. I approve of it though.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, I don't have a definitive number, but it is high up there for me, mainly because it's just so iconic and it has all the throwbacks to the classic Universal horror and, you know, just the 70s, 80s horror that, you know, shaped a lot of people's tastes.
Mm-hmm.
And the next episode we're going to be recording is for the season 2 premiere of the Chucky TV show.
Woo.
So that comes out actually in a couple days.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that one. Yeah.
So regarding the schedule of things, obviously, like we're gonna try to record movie episodes and other stuff concurrently with the TV show. The TV show episodes, I don't have to do a ton of research on. It's mostly just like reactions to what's going on, everything like that. Those should be weekly.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we make that like a Monday thing. It may take longer for these episodes where we kind of do this deep dive again, because there's like a lot of research involved here. I had a few different sources, but that Bride of Chucky making of website from the studio was fantastic. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about tackling all these different things concurrently with the show. Very excited about the show. I won't shut the fuck up about it.
He really won't. When we went to Comic-Con premiere night, there was a Chucky display and he lost his shit.
And then because we were with a couple of friends of ours who operates a YouTube channel, Diggers Comics.
Diggers Comics and Collectibles. Check them out on YouTube or In Your Face Studios.
Yeah, there you go. I saw the Chucky display and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And then, my friend Ambrose, who runs that YouTube channel, he's like, oh yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it, David. And I start talking about like why the franchise is so cool. And
then Ambrose looks over at me and is like, I knew he's not going to shut up about it. That's why I asked him.
Yep.
So I think with the show starting and that we have Glenn and Glenda finally. Oh my God, in their separate bodies, Seed of Chucky is going to be essential in understanding how this child came to be. Well, we saw how this child came to be. Born and raised in Hackensack. No.
I thought you were going to say Bornt for a second, like Trailer Park Boys.
I am not Ricky.
Happy Bornt Day.
Happy Bornt Day. Understanding how Glenn and Glenda came to be is going to be essential to the second season of this show. As I love the interweaving, the incestuous nature of it all. I'm kidding, but
well, then again, you really love Game of Thrones, so incest is a thing that, like, thematically you seem interested in.
As we used to say at the Rocky Horror Picture Show, incest is best. Put your sister to the test. I did, and she failed.
Oh no. Okay, so yeah, I think with that like incest joke, I think we're getting to the end of this.
I'm so sorry. I don't really believe that, guys. I'm just really fucked up. I'm sorry.
Never see Rocky Horror with her. It will destroy your interpretation of who she is.
I used to go to the live cast, so I know all of the callbacks by heart, and they're really fucked up.
Speaking of gay movies.
Yeah, you wonder why I'm like super fucking bi. Okay.
Right. So, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Again, I'm hoping that by Monday we'll have the release of our episode regarding the season premiere of season 2 of Chucky. And then probably a couple days later, this episode will come out. So you'll probably hear this one after.
Yeah.
It just depends on what my edit is, because again, multitasking. So.
And if any listeners have any questions, you should totally hit us up on social media.
Oh, that brings up a question. We do have a question.
Oh.
So I write for HauntedMTL.com, and the owner of the site, Jim, has a question.
Hi, Jim.
So his question is, anyone else realize that Child's Play Andy and Toy Story Andy are the same person?
Oh my God.
So I just figured I'd read that because Jim listens, and Jim, I put your dumb question up there.
Well, no, that's great because, maybe the people at
maybe Andy's mom in the
has got it going on.
Well, no, she was in a psychiatric hospital when he was a kid.
Yeah,
around Andy's age in Toy Story. So
yeah,
it's cute, it's funny. I could already picture Woody and Buzz looking at this Chucky doll.
Maybe some of the writers for Toy Story were Chucky fans.
I don't know. Maybe
that's where they got the name inspiration.
Maybe, but so I figured, Jim, I read your question. So
yeah.
If any of you have a question about our interpretation of the Child's Play franchise, or you want to chime in with what you think, the podcast feed should be updated across all platforms. We were having an issue with that for a while. You saw how stressed I was about that.
Yeah, technology's a bitch.
Yeah, so we have that fixed. You should be able to tune in at any time. I need to get back in touch with the lads over at Chucky Vision. Talk to them, because we were going to do something about I want to do a Don Mancini biography episode. So again, we're in this for the long haul here. So if you have any questions, please let us know.
And where can they find you on the socials, David?
Yes, you can find me on the social media as at HPKOMIC, that is HP Comic. Or you can find all my shit over at hpcomics.com, again, spelled the same way with an S. And that has all of my comics, the radio show, all that jazz.
Nice. And if you have any questions for me, my Twitter, I'm a casual twatter. I just chime in with jokes I think are funny. I'm at ACHOHELELWHY, which is the phonetic spelling of Holly. I had to make it complicated for myself.
So yeah, I think that covers this episode of Kids' Stuff. This is episode 13.
Lucky number 13.
Now that I've mentioned that it is episode 13, I will probably have to make sure that is edited and out first. So I just fucked myself over here. So yeah, there we go. Say goodbye, Holly.
Goodbye, Holly.
Goodbye. You have been listening to Kids' Stuff, a Chucky podcast, a HauntedMTL original podcast. Our theme is Pop Goes the Weasel by Kevin MacLeod, remixed by Def Beck. You can find Def Beck at deft_Beck on Twitter. You can find more of Kevin MacLeod's music at incompetech.filmmusic.io. If you want to find out more about me, the podcaster, you can just go to hpkomics.com, hpcomics.com, or you can find me on the socials at hpkomic. For more great horror content, do not forget to visit HauntedMTL.com.